or good evening, depends on what time you are listening to this podcast. Welcome to OneMDHealth, where science meets soul. So happy to have all of you here. I wanted to introduce this new space of mine. This is where most of my podcast episodes are going to be, and also where patients would like to see me in person if they cannot make it to see me in the city. That is right. I've opened up an office space here in Westmont. It's located at 999 Oakmont Plaza, Suite 600, and it's in Westmont, Illinois. So definitely message me if you are interested in seeing me in person, if you cannot see me in the city. And also, this is where I'm going to be hosting a lot of my guests here at OneMDHealth. Now, the guests that I'm going to have on this podcast episode, they're going to consist of a wide range of professionals and individuals. So it's not just going to be professionals, it's going to be individuals, because the concept here at OneMD Health is that everyone is a part of your health journey. Everyone. Your spouse, your family, your children, your friends, basically anyone and everyone you interact with. If you feel great around them, if it's not a toxic environment, that highly contributes to overall wellness, because it's part of the nervous system. When you feel safe and when you feel like you are supported, nothing matters more than that. And that is number one in wellness. Before supplements, before blood work, before medications, before the hospital, it is all about your environment. So my concept here for this podcast is to introduce individuals on this podcast that play a role in everyone's wellness, whether that be medical doctors, physical therapists, nutritionists, nurse practitioners, whoever, yoga therapists, you name it. They are all part of wellness. There's also a thing called financial wellness. Your financial providers who help you with finances, they're also part of wellness. So wellness is very vast. It's more than just medications. It's more than just supplements. It's more, like I said, more than just getting full blood work panel done, which is still very important and a huge part of my practice. However, I do not want to ever forget the basics. And the basics always start with nervous system regulation. So always going back to basics is my mantra. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about today. And I'm having my little laptop here just to make sure I cover everything I would like to cover. When you are hosting it by yourself, sometimes you can forget certain things. So, and I do not want you to miss anything that I want to tell all of you, because I really appreciate the time you are spending with me today. So let's begin here. So let's begin our topic today. So I want to talk a little bit about midlife. So we hear this word everywhere around Instagram and Facebook, TikTok, midlife. Midlife is the new upgrade, upgrade to midlife, upgrade to midlife. So what exactly does midlife mean? Midlife actually starts in your 40s. And the average health span for patients is 80s, whether they live a happy, optimal life or not. So if you think about it, when you hit midlife, you really have the rest of your 40 years to live amazing. And so that is still quite a lot of years to live optimally. So, but what happens in midlife, there's a shift. There's a shift in midlife, which I've mentioned this before. And it doesn't just happen to women, it does happen in men as well. Unfortunately, though, for us women, we feel the shift a lot more. We feel the shift in hormones, we feel the shift in weight, we feel the shift in overall metabolism. We feel the shift in life changes. Kids get older, parents get older, sometimes job shifts, life shifts. And as a woman, we are always told and taught that we have to carry the burden. We have to fend for everyone except ourselves. And what about us? It's like the healthcare system forgot about us. It's like we don't matter, but we do matter. Who brings everyone together in the home? It's always the woman, it's always the wife, and it's always the mother. So we have to take care of women in healthcare, and we seem to have forgotten that. Now, that doesn't mean we forget about men. Men are very important as well. But men are not as complicated as women are. And what I mean by that, I'm talking in regards to their biology. For instance, let's talk about perimenopause and menopause. It is the big craze right now. So it's all over the internet. It's all over Facebook. It's all over Instagram, like I said. So let's really talk about it. Well, one question I always get, why is it so hard to diagnose perimenopause for doctors? Well, the idea is because you can't really check it on a blood test. You really cannot. And even if you check for hormones, FSH, LH, estrogen, progesterone, sometimes they're normal, but the patient's symptoms, the woman's symptoms say otherwise. For example, they may have normal hormones on a blood test, but what if they come into your office and tell you they have brain fog? Or maybe they don't say it that way, or like, I keep forgetting my keys, or I'm not sure why I'm in this room. What happened? Why am I supposed to be here? Oh my God, I forgot that at home. Oh my God, I can't remember anything. I just feel so out of it. Exhaustion. Why am I so exhausted after 3, 4 p.m.? I used to be able to handle it all and do it all. Also, there's question of sleep. I'm waking up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't even know how I can get myself back to sleep. I'm anxious for no reason. So I mentioned about 4 symptoms out of 10. Usually 10 symptoms women have all at once in regarding to perimenopause, which is about 10 to 15 years before they are diagnosed with menopause, which the diagnosis of menopause is after 1 year of not having any periods. But what about the 10, 15 years we are missing? The brain fog, the mental health issues, the mood changes, the weight changes, the heavy periods, the irregular periods. So all of this happens at once. So why is it so hard to diagnose in the doctor's office? Well, because a lot of times you have to spend time with your patients to be able to diagnose it. If you're seeing your doctor for just 10, 15 minutes, it's hard to address everything in that 10, 15 minutes. When are you going to have time to speak to your patient? That takes at least about an hour, which is actually one of my initial consults are 1 hour. We go through 1 hour over everything. So if you don't spend that much time with your patients, how are you supposed to really be able to accurately diagnose menopause, perimenopause? So that's one big thing. So it requires a lot of time on doctors' hands, it requires a lot of thinking. Also, not every woman manifests perimenopause the same way. Some don't have hot flashes, some do. Some have night sweats, some don't. Some don't have any mood changes, so to speak, but they have sleep issues. Sometimes they don't have any changes in their periods, and some do. So how do you diagnose that? Well, you have to get a full history and you have to talk to your patient for about an hour. And then you have to know what blood work to order because it's not just serum blood levels, which I mentioned. It's also micronutrient testing. How are your cells responding? It's cellular health. It's also microbiome testing, which I cannot stress enough. Testing your hormones without testing your microbiome, if we are suspecting you are in perimenopause in a woman, especially in her mid 40s, mid to early 50s, that is basically doing an incomplete workup. Now, some of my patients opt out of the microbiome testing. I respect it, no problem. However, it is always incomplete, and they always end up doing the microbiome test. So that's one of the main reasons. So this is where I'm at. Okay, so what can we do to make sure that perimenopause is treated carefully? And that's where OneMDHealth comes in. So what can you do to really help combat perimenopause? Well, for one thing, you can educate yourself as a female, especially when you go into in your late 30s, early 40s, when you start to notice changes. Female patients are demanding more from their doctors now. They want more answers. They're tired of being gaslighted. They're tired of saying that their symptoms don't matter, that it's all in their head, because it's not in their head. It's biology. And you know what? I am here for that. I'm here to listen to my patients and really help them get to the root cause of their symptoms so that a lot of times we can help balance their hormones again. You said that right. I said that right. We can balance their hormones again if we know what we are looking for, if we find the root cause, if we can figure out how we can get your body to work for itself again. So the idea is when you get to your 30s, late 30s, early 40s, The idea is not for you to just be able to survive and maintain the household, maintain your job, basically running on empty. The idea is that for you is to thrive, and also that you could thrive at any age, perimenopause, menopause, and on to after that time. There is no time in your life where you cannot thrive, as long as you have proper testing and as long as you have proper guidance from a medical provider that provides all sorts of services to treating this condition. So that's my philosophy at OneMD Health. It's not just about surviving in your 40s. It's really was figuring out what's happening inside your body so that you could thrive in your 50s, well and beyond. Now, today's episode, I want to talk about particularly estrogen and progesterone and the scary tactics that have happened behind hormone replacement therapy. I feel when some patients come into my office, especially my older patients, when they come in and they're postmenopausal, and I do bring up the idea of HRT, because obviously they have no hormones in menopause, and they're very frightened. They're like, "Doc, we heard this causes cancer. We heard this can cause worsening heart attacks and strokes." And it has a lot to do with this study that was done back in 2002. And that study was particularly called the Women's Health Initiative Study back in 2002, the WHI. So this is what really caused a serious, terrible cascade for women and made them so scared of ever thinking about HRT, which unfortunately denied women so much of this treatment plan. I'm going to say it right here. HRT is absolutely amazing in women's health when prescribed properly and when you are understanding how to prescribe it as a medical provider. Every patient's different. Every female patient is going to have their own comorbidities, age groups. Age matters biologically. The sooner you start on HRT, the better you will be. That doesn't mean you cannot start it later in life. I have started some patients on HRT after age of 55, but I go slow. I go with a low dose and I titrate, and they see me every 3 months, and I manage and I monitor their symptoms. I check for risk factors. I check their diet and lifestyle and make sure that that coincides as well. Always looking at diet and lifestyle. That is non-negotiable. Before we get into the study that scared a lot of women from HRT, let's talk about some role that estrogen does. So what is estrogen? What roles does estrogen provide in your body? Is it just about periods? Is it just about fertility? Is it just about regular cycles? No, it is so much more than that. It's actually about metabolic health. Estrogen plays a much bigger role in female health than we realize. So let's talk about 5 roles that it plays. Well, first off, it manages insulin sensitivity. So therefore, it helps your cells be more sensitive to insulin, more responsive to insulin. So what are the 5 roles of estrogen? Well, did you know that it actually improves insulin sensitivity? So what does that mean exactly? It helps your cells respond to insulin much better. So what does that mean? Less likely any risk of diabetes or insulin resistance, pre-diabetes. So when estrogen levels drop, your risk of type 2 diabetes rises because estrogen helps your cells become sensitive to insulin. So when you eat anything, you eat a meal, let's just say even spinach, it has to be broken down into sugar, right? So insulin is released from your pancreas. It binds to the sugar molecules, like glucose, basically, that has been broken down from spinach. And it takes the glucose and tries to give it to your cells. So your cells can take in the glucose to break that down into energy. And that's metabolism. What happens in insulin resistance and low estrogen levels, the cells don't respond to the insulin. Therefore, glucose does not get taken into the cells. And then your pancreas starts to release more insulin. And that definitely increases your fasting insulin levels. It increases your fasting blood sugar. And what happens is you develop insulin resistance over time. So HRT is very beneficial in helping patients prevent prediabetes. Pretty wild, huh? So, okay. So it's very important for insulin sensitivity. The second thing that it's important for, it actually buffers cortisol response. So it helps with stress. So when you don't have estrogen, your cortisol kicks in at high amounts. Therefore, that's why women feel more stressed, more anxious. And also, cortisol is a steroid hormone. So it's also very inflammatory. So inflammation rises more in perimenopause. And this is where you see inflammatory fat gain, inflammatory weight gain, especially around the midsection. That is all stress, visceral fat from cortisol due to less estrogen. What is the third thing for estrogen? What helps with? Well, it also helps protect muscle mass. Now, I cannot say this any further or longer. Muscle preservation is so important for longevity. And it's really about not just aesthetics, but it's about being able to pick up your grandchild when you're in your 70s and 80s, being able to walk, prevent falls. Muscle is your insurance organ. That's really how you should look at it. So estrogen helps preserve muscle mass along with testosterone, but estrogen definitely plays a role. So decrease in estrogen, more high risk of sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting, which leads more to falls. So why are we denying women of this treatment that actually can help them later on in midlife? Fourth thing that also helps is that estrogen actually also helps to clear excess estrogen. Estrogen is not just about high or low, it's also about how is your body clearing it? Are you clearing it through proper detox pathways? Are you detoxing and clearing estrogen properly through your stool, through your liver? So that is also very essential. A lot of times when estrogen gets stuck, there's a lot of receptors in the gut, and that can cause constipation. So that creates gut dysbiosis, causes enterohepatic circulation, allowing estrogen to be recirculated back into the bloodstream, which unfortunately overwhelms the liver, which can cause irregular bleeding due to estrogen dominance. Not because you have a lot of estrogen, it's because you can't get rid of the estrogen you have made. Now, the fifth purpose is that it controls overall inflammation. So when, like I explained, when cortisol is increased, when visceral fat accumulates, the visceral fat releases a lot of toxins and also starts to activate your immune system, like interleukin 6, TNF alpha. The immune system just goes haywire. So women are more likely to develop autoimmune disease later on in life. How does that all relate it? Very much related. It also increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. Estrogen is very cardioprotective in our arteries. Did you know that when estrogen declines, LDL rises because estrogen is very important for the elasticity of arteries. So what can you do at this point besides HRT? So let's just take HRT back. So what can you do right now to basically help with perimenopause, this time in your life of transition? Well, number one, make sure that protein and strength training are non-negotiable. The switch has to come from HIIT exercises, just straight up cardio exercises, to more brisk walking and strength training 2-3 times per week. Strength training is a must. Also, what's also non-negotiable is protein. Protein helps balance blood sugar, which is really important when cortisol can be highly increased. Okay, so eating about 35 grams at least of protein in every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a female in her early 40s and early perimenopause is non-negotiable. Never eat anything without protein. Yes, have your fruits and vegetables, have your have your carbs, your complex carbs, but make sure you are getting 35 grams of protein in each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Strength training 2-3 times per week. If there's anything you get out of this podcast, that is something that is non-negotiable. These are simple lifestyle changes that you can do. Forget about cardio, forget about running. It'll just overstress your symptoms even more. Your hormones need balance. They don't need more cortisol, more stress. So that's what I would like you to understand. The other important thing, if anything you get out of this podcast, make sure 7 hours of sleep is non-negotiable. Sleep is everything. Sleep is great for repair. Sleep is great for metabolism. Sleep is great to keep inflammation at bay. So 7 hours of sleep is non-negotiable. Now, unfortunately, a lot of women come to me, well, that's the problem I have, doc. I'm not sleeping. I'm waking up 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm stressed and I can't go back to sleep. I'm right there with you. So I'm a patient too, and it's hard, but that's where I come in and I figure out what is the cause of your sleep, because sleep is very complicated. Yes, hormones are part of the history, but so are gut issues. If you're not clearing your estrogen, so is liver support. If your liver is definitely overwhelmed from toxins such as alcohol, such as even mold or other toxins we're exposed to, whatever we're drinking in plastic bottles, heavy metal toxins are everywhere. Also, so that's also important. Sleep is also affected by nutrients, micronutrients, particularly magnesium and vitamin D. Those are one of the most key markers I look at. Magnesium is extremely important for overall calmness, brain health, and also sleep. And also vitamin D has many important pathways that it's involved in. Vitamin D is actually considered a hormone, not even a supplement. I would say about 80% of my patients that come and see me are extremely vitamin D deficient. Now, the issue is a lot of conventional medical doctors, including myself back in the day, felt that a vitamin D level of 30 to 40 was adequate. You're fine. Now, for some patients, maybe, if they're sleeping fine. But when you get to be in perimenopause and midlife, you need a little bit more of vitamin D than that. A lot of times, I like vitamin D levels at least to be between 60 to 80. 80, a lot of my patients feel amazing on. So, and then there's also a lot of arguments that there's no such thing as high toxic vitamin D levels. I don't know if I would go that far, but definitely 60 to 80 is when you're able to burn calories and where you're able to sleep well and you're able to have less brain fog. Vitamin D affects mood, affects sleep, and also affects metabolism, especially in that feeling as you get to be in your mid-40s and you wonder, I'm exercising the same, I'm eating right, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing right, but the weight just does not come off. I cannot seem to get this weight off. In fact, I'm gaining more weight as we speak. How is that possible, doc? Well, your vitamin Ds are low, your magnesium level is low, your inflammatory markers are high, and you have some gut dysbiosis. So the system is not in balance. So that's how we have to look at health. It's a system approach. Yes, and when you put hormones in a toxic system that is not working properly, they are not going to attach to your cells properly. They are not going to work efficiently for you. And therefore, a lot of times, hormones go out of balance, hormones start to do their own thing, and then you get early diagnosis sometimes of perimenopause. Now, the question is, okay, so if I balance my hormones, can I get out of perimenopause? Well, yes and no. You can balance your hormones again. However, you're shifting though, the hormones are still shifting. You can balance hormones if you catch it early, but one thing for sure, non-negotiable in perimenopause, even when you balance your hormones, maintain adequate protein, strength training 2-3 times per week, sleep 7 hours per night. And the last thing, but the most important thing, which definitely differentiates OneMDHealth from other medical practices, is nervous system regulation. That is number one. Nervous system regulation is everything. So what do I mean by nervous system regulation? Well, I mean finding time for meditation. And a lot of my patients sometimes roll their eyes, maybe in their head. They don't roll it in front of me, but maybe in their head, like, oh my God, doc, really? You want me to meditate? I barely even have time to even like get up in the morning. Well, your morning routine sets the tone. So finding 5 minutes when you wake up to meditate, listening to something on YouTube before you get up, sets the tone of your day. Opening the window, allowing 5 minutes of fresh air, sets your cortisol circadian rhythm perfectly. Okay, it balances your HPA axis. Little things like that. Getting movement, 10, 15 minutes in the morning, getting a 10, 15-minute walk sets your balance for everything. Walking after meals sets the tone for digestion. all of these things. You have to make your body feel safe in the parasympathetic state in order for it to be able to lose weight, in order for inflammation to be decreased. This is actually the same concept as cancer, if you think about it. Cancer cells are very similar in that regard, where inflammation is what drives them. So when you take away the inflammation and you get your body into a more relaxed parasympathetic state, then cancer cells die. Why do you think a lot of holistic practices use yoga as therapy? Because it helps decrease inflammation. It's the same reason why I practice yoga and why I use yoga a lot in my practice and tell patients to practice in their morning routine every day, because it is so essential to decrease inflammation. Whether you are in perimenopause, menopause, or beyond that, or even cancer states, nervous system regulation is key. So I hope that this really raised your awareness that hormones are just part of the story. It's about looking at nutrition, gut health, liver support, and hormones are last. So, and there are things that you can do, which I want to reiterate again. Protein, non-negotiable with each meal, 30 to 35 grams of protein each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And eat. I really want to say this to all my female patients who are not eating and starving themselves because they want to stay thin. And they think that I'm not going to eat any carbs. I'm not going to eat much. I'm just going to skip meals because they're so obsessed with staying thin. You are doing a disservice to yourself. The more you eat proper, real whole foods, the more you feed your metabolism, the more you feed your cells, the more you keep your hormones balanced, the more the weight sticks off, along with strength training. You have to do the work, ladies. It's not just going to happen by starving yourself, because eventually what happens when your hormones are definitely all out of line, then the whole system shuts down. And it's really like almost wasting away your body. So I cannot stress this enough, is that eat the protein. You're not going to bulk up. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Eat the complex carbs. What do I mean by complex carbs? Sweet potatoes, quinoa, all right? Things that raise your HDL, which will help with cholesterol, especially as estrogen declines. You want to make sure you have enough HDL to combat the high LDL that would happen when estrogen does decline. So please get enough carbs in, complex carbs. Minimize or definitely discontinue all processed foods, sugary sodas. There's no room for that. Alcohol, keep it to a minimum. Just keep it to a minimum and be more self-aware of what type of alcohol you do drink. So I'm just going to say that please do not starve yourself. You may be losing the weight, but it's really causing more harm than good. It's actually causing muscle wasting, sarcopenia, and worse problems down the line. It can cause stress fractures down the line. It can cause you to fall, and it can actually worsen mood and brain fog. You will feel absolutely miserable. So please hear me when I say it. These are the fundamentals. Eat your protein, eat your complex carbs, do your strength training 2-3 times per week, be around loving, amazing people in your life, get your meditation, and try to practice yoga once a week, however way. If you don't want to join a studio, perfectly fine. There are plenty of yoga practices you could do on YouTube before bed, but do something that can cause nervous system regulation. So let's talk about a little bit about the study of the WHI, the Women's Health Initiative. So there was a big scare. So they took women that took progestin and conjugated estrogen, and they put it for women over the age of like between 60 and 80, for definitely very postmenopausal, about 20 years out of menopause. Usually we start HRT in patients at the age of 45 to 40 to 50, around there. Okay, that's when HRT is really supposed to be started. So they did the wrong population. Also, a lot of these women were not healthy. They were hypertensive. They already had increased risk factors for stroke. Probably a lot of women I wouldn't even start HRT in the first place. And if I were, I would not start progestins or conjugated estrogens. What I start with is bioidentical estrogen, which is the patch, which is now FDA approved, and also micronized progesterone, which is also approved for hormone replacement therapy, and can actually be covered by insurance. So to scare women off at any age is absolutely ridiculous. And also, another thing I'd like to add on, did you know that a lot of these great societies, like the Society of Gynecology, OB-GYN, endocrinology, they actually say that age is not considered a basically no HRT after age 65, 60 or 65. That's not so much nothing after that. What I hate is all or none. I hate that in medicine and I hate that in life. You can't just say, no, you're not a candidate for HRT. You're over the age of 60. No, hold on. How about looking at their biology? How about looking at their nutrients? How about looking at their blood serum levels? How about looking at their lifestyle? How about looking at the risk factors? How about looking at their family history? How about looking at their gut microbiome? What is their real age? Meaning, their biological age. So the age that we have, that's just a number. But we really need to look at biological age. So you can't treat every female patient the same. That's why personalized care is so important. And this is why I'm going to have this out there that please do not be scared of HRT. Be scared of the wrong provider that gaslights you. And honestly, if you feel like you're not being heard, get a second opinion. This is your life we're talking about. Get involved with a physician, a doctor that understands HRT, that understands your biology, that can work with you and to find the best fit for you. Because whatever plan I will do for you, I will not do for someone else. Get a second opinion. Your life will depend on it, believe it or not. I hope you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to see you for the next episode. I'm Dr. Samiya Hashmi, and this is OneMD Health. Thank you for visiting OneMD Health Podcast. Please like and subscribe. If this podcast resonates with you, please share it to whomever you feel would benefit from this. If you have any questions, please visit my website, samiyahashmimd.com.